Tomorrow, Thursday, August 22nd, 9 o'clock p.m. on Food Network, the final episode of BBQ Brawl, Flay versus Simon. Bobby Flay and Lee Ann Whippen, Michael Simon and Susie Bullock, battle for the title of Master of Q. And tonight on the Owl's Nest Barbecue Show, Lee Ann Whippen will be here to share her journey up the barbecue pit to see who will be Food Network's Master of Q. She's one, if not one of the most recognizable televised barbecue pit masters in America. She has appeared on Barbecue Superstars, Barbecue Pitmasters, Barbecue Pitmaster All-Stars, Food Network's Chopped, and now Food Network's newest barbecue format, BBQ Brawl, Flay versus Simon. She hails from Tampa, Florida, where she is the owner and pitmaster of Deviled Pig Barbecue. And her latest addition to her resume is she's a grandmother.
I am. Last week.
Congratulations, Lee. And hang on, let me do one thing here. I've got to push one button to make sure that we are good to go. Oh, we are good to go. Good deal. Welcome, everybody, to the
Well, Steve, I want to thank you for that amazing introduction. It made me feel really good.
Well, good for you. I wanted it to. It's a big,
awesome.
Lee Ann, this is a big deal. This is
the show is really a big deal. I mean, I had no idea, when I first stepped into the, audition thing that I didn't even know who was going to be on it, anything. So it's really turned into something really cool.
Well, it is really cool. Hey, tell me about little Charlie. The
little Charlie is my first granddaughter. My oldest daughter, Brittany, she's 29. So this is her first. So it's Charlotte Elizabeth, aka Charlie. So we welcomed her into the world on August 13th, and she's actually sitting on the sofa behind me.
That is fantastic. Let me ask you probably the most important thing, at least here in the South, it is. Lee Ann, what's the grandmother name that you've chosen?
It's Nana Lily. And funny story is that one of the patrons of the restaurant gave me a gift to give to Brittany for Charlie. And it's 2 onesies. And it says on the front of the onesie, Nana Lily smells like brisket, with a piece of brisket on there.
I guess that's good.
Yeah, it's cute.
I guess
cute.
That's a good thing.
Yeah.
Now, everybody that's watching, put your pen and your pencil down for just a moment. We will get to the $10,000 potato salad recipe. I promise. Lee Ann, everybody that came into my humble little barbecue store this week when they found out you were going to be on the show is, I've got to have that $10,000 potato salad recipe. You'll get it. Okay.
Yeah, for another $10,000, sure.
That's a pretty good deal, cooking potato salad for $10,000.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's talk about your television odyssey before we start anything else. You know, everybody equates you with Barbecue Pitmasters, but you were in a series before that even.
Well, I was actually on a couple things. I did the Throwdown with Bobby Flay, ironically, and now I'm working with him again. So I think that was my first big TV thing. And then I also did another Food Network thing where Bobby Flay narrated it, and my sister and I were actually on the show, and they followed us around at the Royal. And that was a long time ago, too. And then Kingsford Barbecue Championship Series was on Versus Network, which I love the format of that. Mm-hmm. And did that one as well with my sister. And then of course, the Pitmasters. And I did Chopped a couple of years ago. That was a lot of fun. And then, of course, this one is the icing on the cake, really.
But you were on that first season of Pitmasters, and that was probably... Oh gosh, that's the one that got the ball rolling as far as popularity goes in the barbecue world. and that's the one I remember that got me interested in barbecue. And it's I guess America has watched you grow up as a pitmaster.
Yeah, I've been doing it.
Yeah.
Well, I started with my dad 23 years ago, and we got certified KCBS judges, of course, and then we went to the Stone Mountain Georgia State competition, ended up winning grand, and went to the Royal and won first place in pork at the Invitational. So,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that was crazy right out of the gate. And then, I was working in the hotel, food and beverage industry, and just continued doing that. It's hard to make a living, obviously, competitive barbecue, but that became my passion. So I was always doing it on the side, and I have been ever since.
How did you get into the television? Like, how did you get into it all those years ago, and how do you keep getting called back? Because seems like every format, every time someone does something, Lee Ann Whippen shows up, and you always bring your A game to whatever you're on.
It's well, obviously I'm a minority, so there's not a lot of females doing this out there. So my odds of being selected or at least looked at are a lot higher. So that, and not only that, I think the credibility aspect, I'm in the barbecue restaurant business. I'm not just competing, but it is my life. And, the credibility, I think, adds to it. And also my family is very involved. On the Pitmasters, you'll see, both my daughters, my sister, as I said, has been on the shows. My dad has been on the shows. So the fact that family is very involved, I think, is important, for these producers and people
Sure.
that are doing the creation.
Sure does. Do you, getting back to your restaurants, I know when I started seeing you on television, it was Wood Chicks.
Yeah.
You have your restaurant career has taken you from the East Coast of Virginia to Chicago, and now you've landed in Tampa Bay with the Deviled Pig barbecue place. Tell me how how each one of these stops, what did you do there, and what made you leave like Wood Chicks to go to Chicago to a totally different high scale area, and then come back down to Tampa, where it seems like you've really got a really great barbecue place going on now.
Well, I started off in Chesapeake, Virginia, obviously with Wood Chicks, and it grew into a large freestanding restaurant. So I had 3 of those restaurants, but in the interim, I was contacted by a developer in Chicago, and that was in 2010. And when I went to Chicago to check it out, I was, I lived in Manhattan many years ago and wanted to get back to the city. So that gave me the opportunity, first of all, to do that. But in the Gold Coast area, it's very high end. And the price point in Chesapeake, Virginia, obviously I couldn't do high end, like Wagyu and, just really crazy food. And when I saw the opportunity in Chicago where I could expand, my menu and things that I really wanted to try, that opened the door. So I jumped on that and it worked. And I did competition ribs. I think I'm the first one in the country to do that. And that was risky and ended up selling more of those than our house ribs. And, that's another long story. Mm-hmm. But, after Chicago, obviously coming down to Tampa last year was because of family reasons. I knew my daughter was going to start a family. My mom's in Naples. And, my dad's not that far away in North Carolina. So it just made sense from a family point of view because I spend so much time at work. I needed to be closer to them because I'm not getting any younger.
You and me both, partner. So the Tampa thing, are you happy there now? I
am.
Are you in the place you think you need to be?
Yeah, right now the place is a little small for my taste, but it's a nice break from the full service, high scale. But, in Tampa, the point of this restaurant was to infuse Tampa flavors into the barbecue, by, utilizing, the local bread company. And the Deviled Pig is named after the deviled crab, which was, developed in Ybor City. So I really try to put a twist on it to make it different than your traditional barbecue restaurant. So, but still sticking with the, the main, cores. And you don't see burn ends down here hardly at all. So that is, and brisket for that matter. So bringing that to Tampa was a huge plus, and it's been very well received.
I bet the burn ends are flying out the door.
They are. They are. It's hard to keep up with them. That is the one item that, we just sell out of. I mean, there's only so many bird hens you can produce.
Yeah. Well, it's hard work, and I really admire that, wanting to get down to your daughter and be there for her and her family, and kind of being the grandma or the grandmother in waiting, and if she needs something, I'm sure you're there to take up the
Absolutely.
slack. Yeah, and that'll be a neat place for that child to grow up. I've had a business 35 years, and my kids grew up in the business too. So you are creating a lot of good memories for your grandchild now, as she'll come to your restaurant, and it'll be
Absolutely.
you'll be
It's
another
fourth generation.
yeah,
So
you'll be another
we'll keep
Sam
it
Jones.
going.
It'll be another Sam Jones story. You know.
Yeah, there you go.
She'll take it off. All right, let's move on. Let's get on to the show now. Your team on Bobby Flay's team was Joe Pierce, Tuffy Stone, Phil Johnson. So in that place y'all were at in Austin, what was the name of that event?
I think it was called the Star Hill Ranch. It was really cool because it was, what you see on TV is what it is. And it's a venue too, because people get married there. There was a wedding there when we were actually filming, off to the side.
Uh-huh.
So it's like a cool little town, and all the buildings are real inside. I mean, the church that we were in most of the time, it had the pews and everything else. It was the real deal.
There were 4 episodes filmed. During the series so far that I've watched, all 3, they keep referring to yesterday we did this, yesterday we did that. Did y'all film this thing in 4 days?
We were actually out there for 10 days. We filmed 2 days, then we had 1 day not off, but, to do all of the filming of, talking about everything. And then it was 2 days back to back. So it was long days. I mean, we had early call times. They were probably 15-hour days back to back, because, the time is real and true on the show, our cooking time. So that's not edited or anything. But in between, you have different things that are being filmed, and they always want to have you talk about every single solitary thing that you did, so that it's incorporated in the show, however they're going to edit it. So you're almost like really doing the thing twice, cooking once, but talking about it next.
Was it cold? Because in the episode 1, you looked like you were freezing.
It was absolutely freezing. We had parkas on the side, but they wanted us to take them off for filming because they wanted it to look like a summertime thing. Mm-hmm. We had hand warmers in our hands. I was sitting on them at some point. And Bobby Flay was very, very sensitive to the cold. So when we were at the judging, he was not happy. And then they finally brought in heaters in the second show. And then all of a sudden the weather turned and it got a little bit warmer. So it did get better, but it was freezing in the beginning.
Now this was his production company that did this series, isn't it?
It's Rock Shrimp Productions. So that is his company. Yes.
Was this the same place that barbecue or Pitmaster All-Stars was filmed?
No, it was in another. I forget where that was. It was in
cold
Austin,
then too. You remember that? You were freezing in that one too.
Yes, and and as a matter of fact, I drove my pit down from Chicago, and I still had snow in it, which was kind of the reason why my wood was wet and part of it that I got messed up somehow. But yeah, it was cold then too.
Well, that's crazy. I always wondered this. When Joe and Kevin, Tuffy, Carrie, and Phil and Lene were eliminated, did they get to stay and hang around and watch the rest of the filming, or do they really have to walk away?
I'm so sorry. They had to go home.
They don't let them stay, huh?
I don't know. When they send you home on The Bachelor or whatever with the suitcases.
Yeah, well, on Chop they always show him leaving, and on the grocery games he's always leaving the door there. And I thought maybe they get to turn around and hang out for a couple of days and watch.
Well, Phil actually and Lene, because they had to talk about, the second to the last show. So they stayed with us, pretty much to the same last day. But the first 4 competitors did leave early, about midweek. So,
hey, when you got there and you found out who all your fellow competitors were, how many did you know, and did you even know Susie Bullock?
funny story. So when the cars came to pick us up at the airport, Susie and I were picked up together, and I didn't know who she was, and I knew she was, I didn't know what capacity, and she's like, "Hey, Lee Ann," and she knew who I was, and she's like, "You're a judge, right?" And I said, "No, I'm competing," and she was like, "Oh my God." She goes, "So am I," and I'm like, "Oh, so what's your deal? I haven't seen you, on the competition circuit." She goes, "I've never competed before," and I'm thinking, this poor girl. What is she getting into? And then she started telling me about, what she does and, her site and barbecue. And I started getting a little nervous. I'm like, she really knows what's going on right now with the food. And, but anyway, I didn't think, much of it. And then we all went down to the lobby on the first day. And that's when we all became face to face with everyone. And of course, the fear factor when I saw Tuffy, I'm like, "Tuffy, you're judging, right?" He's like, "No." And I said, "Are you kidding me?" I mean, I was just baffled by that. But yeah, we all saw each other at the same time. And I know Lene and, pretty much, well, I don't know Joe personally, but I know his history and I knew it was going to be a tough group for sure.
It was a real tough group. And I've tried a couple times over the last few months to get Susie on the show because her Hey Grill Hey website is so popular, and she's such an interesting person. And when I was sitting down to watch it, episode 1, I went, "Hey, that's Susie Bullock." And the first thing I said was, "What's she doing there?" I felt the same way.
It actually worked out to be great. She was kind of the sleeper, the underdog. But man, she can cook, and she's a lot of fun to listen to and watch. And we had a blast. All of us did. We all got along really well, but I'm so glad she made it to the end. It kind of shows everybody that, you don't have to be doing this a long time or be, a super competitor to actually do well. And she managed it, and she really held herself really, really well. I'm very proud of her.
Her whole website and her whole Hey Grill Hey thing is it's phenomenal. She's very, like you say, she's very good at what she does. Number one, cooking, and number two, she's very entertaining, and she presents all those recipes in such an entertaining way that you can't help but not go to it at least once or twice a week to just check out
fabulous.
To see what she's got.
Yeah.
Watching the show, I think it's pretty obvious that you don't have much of a poker face. And when Joe was eliminated in episode 1. You held your hand over your mouth and gasped. And when when Tuffy was excused, your reaction was like someone told you that your car had just been stolen. Were you expecting somebody else to get the boot each time?
Actually, Joe was next to me, and when I saw his dish being turned in, I was like, "Oh my God, that looks like the cover of Bon Appetit."
Yeah.
And I was absolutely stunned and that was Bobby's first pick. I mean, Bobby was all about him being the man. And so that was a stunner. Tuffy, you don't see it. They cut it, but I start bawling when they cut him. And Tuffy and I are like hugging and because we go way back, we're friends. And I don't know if I was crying so hard because I was happy or I was sad to see him go. And that's the God's honest truth. I was blown away. And I knew I was in trouble when Bobby picked me third, and those two were on my team. I really thought, that those were some of the worst threats for sure.
Yeah, because getting picked on his team is what you wanted, but getting picked with probably the I don't want to say it, but some pretty good cooks between Joe Pierce and Tuffy,
right.
And not that Phil's not good, but Tuffy Stone, my God, he's Mr.
He's
Barbecue,
a world champion,
world champion.
5 times.
Yeah, and then into cap it all, he's a trained chef. So, he can do it all. I mean, he's the ultimate. He's the ultimate cooking machine.
And the interesting part of the whole show is that you really aren't against the other team. You're technically against your own teammates because you're, you know what I mean? So it isn't. So here I'm thinking, it's good. I don't know. There were so many things running through my head. I didn't know if it was good or bad that Joe and Tuffy were, and Phil were on my team. I thought, oh, well, maybe we'll beat them. And then I thought, they're against me. And it turned out being a bad thing. You know what I mean?
There aren't teams. They're just sides.
Yeah, you're all about being on your own. I mean, it's you're fighting for yourself.
And I knew exactly how Susie felt because I was on the playground. I always got picked last. So, Susie, I know if you're watching, I know exactly how you feel. So, don't worry. You did just great.
Yeah,
In episode 3, rather, and I want to just I don't want to go back through all the shows, but we'll just
sure.
kind of concentrate on episode 3 because it was so good. It was this was, I think, the one true barbecue show because you did have 5 hours, and I know you had 5 hours before, and it was funny when Tuffy overcooked his brisket in 5 hours. Everybody thought that was a unique,
Yeah.
a unique way to get cut, but we won't go there. Anyway, the regions: Lene had Alabama, Susie had Santa Maria, California, which I didn't know was a region. Lee Ann, you had Memphis, and
Right.
Phil had Kansas City. One of my friends brought up the fact that Texas wasn't listed on there, and y'all were
Well,
in
that's
Texas.
because we did Texas beef the show before, so
Okay.
Texas we already hit.
Okay,
That's
so
why.
they used that as the main deal. You're in Texas.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So we did Texas beef, so that's why.
Now you know what was so funny? I thought that Susie and Lene's dishes they had to make were totally opposite. California, Alabama. You can't get much opposite than that. But
It is.
yours and Phil's, Memphis and Kansas City barbecue are just about the same.
They are.
There's
They're
such
very
little
similar.
difference. And I want to focus on yours and Phil's competition because you're here, obviously, and you beat Phil to get to the finals. So let's see, you cooked ribs on the Weber Smoky Mountain Smoker, and you turned in ribs, potato salad, and carrots. Were you What did you think when you saw the Smoky Mountain and the green egg? Because I know you're a big green egg expert. Did you think?
Yeah. Well, I'm a green egg, fanatic,
Yeah.
and also I have bullets. I take to bullets to competitions all the time. So when I saw both those, I was like, first of all, I didn't know who was going to get them. I thought it was going to be some sort of contest as to who was allowed to cook on what, and basically it was a free for all. And I was shocked that the other cookers didn't use those and they stuck with what we had. So I bounced around. I was on the bullet and the green egg, both of them. And so I really used it to my advantage. But that was a free for all. Whoever wanted to use them could.
Well, you know what was interesting, and I'm digressing a little bit. What was interesting was the other folks, when they were filming, they were concentrating on their meat dish. On yours, your ribs were just like a given. You were so confident about the ribs, and I think that probably showed through on the show that they had to. There was nothing interesting going on with your ribs because you were so confident in them that you just got them done, and you knew exactly how you were going to cook them. And it was the side dishes that were messing you up. Was that kind of what was happening behind the scenes?
Yes. So they obviously want to show you things on the show when you're having challenges, fires, whatever it is. And they didn't even show it on the show, but I actually made 3 sides before I got to the carrots. I made a slaw after the green beans and had Bobby try it. And we were both like, eh. So that got cut too. But it took me 3 tries before I figured out I was going to go with the carrots. And the reason I went with the carrots is because I think there was carrots on another dish on the other show, and the judges seemed to like them. So that's kind of why I went there, and, whiskey and whatever. So it seemed to work.
Well, Phil did ribs, pork belly burnt ends, coleslaw, and beans. Now, let me stop and ask you here, and this is a very pointed question. Were you surprised that Phil was turning in ribs and burnt ends? Because it looked like Bobby Flay sure was surprised that he was turning in two proteins.
Well, you got to think about Kansas City, and Phil was thinking burnt ends is indigenous to that part of the country. I found that I always do too much in competitions, and Susie was doing too much. And even midway, when I talked to her outside of the show, I'm like, you got to cut back and focus 100% on less items, because she was doing too many things. And that's what Phil did. I think he just did too many things. And But I think the burn end aspect was trying to hit the Kansas City style, which, I can appreciate, but I think it backfired a little bit. Sometimes, it's like when you turn in a brisket box, with sliced and burn ends. If your burn ends are not 100% on point, don't turn them
Bingo.
in.
That's what
You
I was
know,
thinking. That's what I was thinking. Don't, why put two things on the plate to be judged when you only have to put one thing on the plate to be
right.
judged?
You want your best foot forward.
Yeah.
And, if you're going to fail with, anyway, he made a great attempt. I mean, it was a close call, my sides, and it's a shame that sides end up being, sometimes the decision maker, but this show is all about everything. So you have to have everything at its very best.
You crushed the $10,000 potato salad when you were making it, and not yet, folks. Put it down. We'll get there soon. Um, and when you were doing the sides, the storyline showed that you were really hurrying and pressed for time. Were you really running out of time before you finally got the carrots done in that? It was what was that thing you cooked the carrots in? What was that? Some sort of a boil thing or?
Oh, well, I melted the butter and the whiskey, I think on a sauce pot, but
Okay.
I ended up doing carrots. They got burnt when they were doing, I don't know, some sort of interview or whatever. It wasn't like I burnt carrots, but it was funny. I was cooking them at one point and I'm talking to the carrots and I'm saying to I actually said it out loud. I said, "You think I know how to cook carrots by now?" And Bobby was right behind me. He goes, "What did you just say?" And I said, "You think I know how to cook carrots by now?" But you do get, when they throw in the sidewinders, they do it at very appropriate times just to kind of mess with you.
Mm-hmm.
So it does interfere with your cooking. And I think you'll see where the ribs, I kind of open up I think it was the green egg. And I was like, thank you, Jesus, for them being done, because I was distracted during one of my turn-ins and I really wasn't sure that they were done. So that was a real reaction.
Now you wrapped those ribs, didn't you? Because I saw one quick scene where they were sitting in the egg. It looked like they had foil on them.
So the key was not to wrap them, and the real honest cook time on they were not wrapped until actually when I knew a sidewinder was going to come up, and that was more for protection. I did not do like a 3-2-1 method or anything like that. That was just for safety because they were almost done, and I just needed them a little bit more tender, and it was protection not to get, not to burn them really.
Hey, before we get to the judging, let's talk a little bit about those chicken wings. You were number one, and your main nemesis Phil Johnson was number 4, so that helped you right out of the box in the final judgment. But what I noticed that you cooked. Everybody cooks wings, Lee Ann. Everybody says, "I'll cook the wings. I've got the best wings in the world." And Phil certainly was out front. I've got the best wings. These Philly crack wings are the best thing. I noticed that you didn't take advantage of the fryer. It looked like you just grilled yours all the way. Is that the way you normally do it?
Well, at Wood Chicks, actually, I used to smoke and fry them. They were delicious, but I thought this was really more of a barbecue show, and frying to me was an element that really wasn't so barbecue. And I thought the judges might appreciate, me getting a crispy exterior via the grill and getting char on it versus, getting some grease and that kind of crispiness. Mm-hmm. So that was my plan. And then also getting smoke into it. I think I threw cherry on there. So I hit it with light smoke. And I wasn't even trying that hard on the wings. I was more focused on the main cook. And I was very surprised that I won because I honestly have never made a wing like that in my life. I don't know what entered into my head. I just started throwing stuff in it. And I think I ate probably 6 wings before I turned them in, just tasting them to make sure they were good.
Well, that's quite a backstory there. When you turn in something you've never tried, and then boom, you won it.
Yeah,
and you won it by a split. What was interesting too was by a split decision, because I thought that was interesting because I think let's see, I wrote it down somewhere. One of the guys had you. I think Mo had you and Lene, and Amy and Chris had you and Susie. I believe
Right, right. It was
that's what it
split.
was. Yeah. So that I think that made it even better for Susie at the end on her side
Right,
of the
right.
competition against Lene.
Hmm.
So you were surprised that you won because there again, your poker face.
No,
You sure couldn't
I
tell.
was
You looked
totally
like a cheerleader.
surprised,
You looked like a cheerleader. Notre Dame just scored a touchdown.
and I am not a cheerleader.
But it was a great reaction, and it made for great television. I thought it
Yeah,
was wonderful.
it was a surprise.
Okay, let's get to the judging. I thought the judging was a little funky, and we can talk about that. How long after y'all cooked the food all during the whole series? How long was it before the food was judged?
We were told that it was immediately thereafter, but I know that we had to have two plates, one for beauty shots, one for the judges, and supposedly the food was going directly to the judges.
Mm-hmm.
So we didn't see that. So I'm assuming that's what happened. It's a little bit different on the last show, I'll say, and I can't talk about that. But yeah, it was pretty much supposedly they had it right away.
So the judging, the structure was more like based on what was on television. Now
Mm-hmm.
was like, well, what do you think? Chris said to Amy, and did the three judges did they have any? Do you know if they had any score sheets or did they take notes or was there any sort of a scoring system used in all
No, there
this?
was no number system that I'm aware of, which I kind of like that. It was more of a discussion format.
Mm-hmm.
They're all three very credible judges, and in my opinion, all of their feedback, and you don't hear it all on the show. I mean, the final when they start talking about the food, there's much more said than you see on TV, and so you might think that they aren't critiquing it very much, but they actually are. And they were very specific and very helpful and honest. And I thought they were extremely fair. And I was really proud of their ability and their experience. And I thought they were perfect judges for the show.
Well, the I thought one of the best moments. There's a couple really good moments, like the first one when Kevin pretended to go after the judges when they kicked him off. That was funny.
Yeah.
And then I think it was Mo told Tuffy what was wrong with his well, I think he's either the first one or the second one. He told Tuffy what was wrong with his food, and Tuffy looked at him and said, "Understood." Like,
Yeah.
sit down. You're talking. Mo Kason's talking to Tuffy, telling him what's wrong with his food. But I thought the best one was when Amy was talking to you, and she says that your pig powder, which Lee Ann is world famous. Everybody uses your pig powder. I mean, it's world famous. She looks up at you and she says, "Well, your ribs are really good, really tender. That's the perfect rib. Blah blah blah." And she said, "But you need more spice in the pig powder." And you looked at her and shook your head up. You shook your head like yes. But your eyes were saying to me, "More spice." Are you kidding me? This is Lee Ann Whippen's pig powder, sister.
It's ironic that you said that because today when I was working at the restaurant, a customer pulled me out of the kitchen and said the same thing to me. "We eat your pig powder all the time and it's full of spice. Why did she say that?" And I said, "I don't know."
But were you
Maybe
thinking that?
was,
Were you like totally taken aback by that statement?
I was, but it's very possible that maybe I didn't put enough on there. I don't know. But it evidently was enough to make me get past that round, so I'm okay with it.
Okay, so we don't have to assume that you disagreed with Miss Mills on the pig powder then.
No, I didn't.
I thought that was just hilarious. I thought it was just a hilarious moment, knowing
Yeah.
knowing the history of your competition
Right.
shows, and
Yeah.
somebody telling you the it'd be like, somebody saying, the Mona Lisa is a good picture, but if you just put her eyebrows a little bit up, it would have been perfect.
Yeah.
It would have just been perfect.
Exactly.
All right. So tell me about when Chris Lilly said that your potato salad was the best thing he's ever put in his mouth. A totally different.
Well, you don't see it on the show, but I explain it's $10,000 potato salad, won 10,000 at Vegas at the Worlds.
Mm-hmm.
But he actually said, and it was cut. He said, "This potato salad, you won $10,000," and he goes, "I'd pay you 20,000 for it." He said that, but it got cut out of the show. But what he said that was on the show is fine with me.
Yeah, I mean, it was. I mean, when you're talking to Chris Lilly, and I know you're a huge Chris Lilly fan to begin with.
Of course.
When he gives you a compliment like that, that's
it's huge.
That's like getting the baptism from God, so to speak.
It is. It is.
Okay. When it all boils down, what did you think? What are the elements in your dish, and what were the elements in Phil's dish or lack of that made you winner of episode 3? What are the things that you think put you over the top?
I think it was the consistency. They didn't slam me for anything except for a little less spice on the ribs, whereas Phil, he got some dings on his slaw and on his beans. And if you get a couple dings, that's enough. And also I did win the wing challenge, so they may have taken that into consideration too.
Yeah. And he lost the wing, and he lost.
Were better. Yeah. But, overall, you got to be consistent in every element of the dish. So even though you might win on one thing, if you fail or, get dinged on 2 other things, that'll knock you out.
Yeah. Cause, I mean, I really do think,
You saw what happened to Lene.
Yeah, I was just getting ready to say, you saw
salt,
a teaspoon of salt, like Chris Lilly said. And it was so funny that Michael told her, "Hey, that's too much salt."
He did.
And then it showed when he cut to him, he hung his head like, "I told you. I told you."
Yeah, but salt's a funny thing in potato salad. Potatoes absorb salt very quickly. And we did the sides pretty early on, so it would have given it enough time, at least a few hours, for the potatoes to absorb the salt. But you get all caught up in doing all this stuff that you forget to taste things before you send it in, and it's just it's a little mistake, but it can mean the world.
Well, Lene certainly is she's one of the top barbecue cooks in the nation, as far as I'm concerned. And
totally agree.
And she's such in her food is so interesting, and it is so good that you just never know. And it's a contest, and anything can happen.
Right.
Now let's talk a little bit about episode 4. Now the only thing we got on episode 4 is just the teaser. I haven't seen anything out there online or anything. Not that I've looked, but it looks like you're going to do. I mean, and I don't want you to let the cat out of the bag, but it looks like you're going to do a whole hog, right?
Mm-hmm, that's correct.
Okay. And it looks like, according to the promo that aired last Thursday, you will be having to serve breakfast and lunch.
That's correct.
Now, last night on the Barbecue Central show with Greg Rempe, Susie Bullock was on, and she said she was talking about how hectic it was. Is it as hectic as the promo makes it look?
Yes, it was very hectic because of the time. I mean, we had like 30 minutes, and that's the 30 minutes is not just cooking, it's prepping, it's going over into the pantry, actually getting your items, plating, it's everything in 30 minutes. And that is not a lot of time, especially when you got to think about a little bit like what you're going to do. And you have to have a protein, and the protein has to be cooked all the way through. Mm-hmm. There's so much going through your head. It's extremely hectic. Yeah, it's crazy. Now, it's worse than the hog, actually.
Oh, I can imagine. The hog just sits there. All you gotta do is spritz it.
Yeah, well, have you ever not really, but
have you ever done a whole hog?
Oh yeah, I've done a few.
Okay,
you just wait till you see what happens.
Do you think it gave you an advantage that you have done some? Because Susie said last night she's never done one.
I don't know about that. Let's just say it made for really good TV.
Well, Lee Ann, I cannot wait. I cannot wait to see it, and you just don't know. You just don't know how appreciative I am that you took this time to spend with us here on the Owl's Nest Barbecue Show, especially on the eve of this episode 4. I can't. The only time I can remember a food final being this anticipated, I want to say season 3 of Barbecue Pitmasters when they had the 2-hour special with David Bosca, Lene again,
Yes,
and
yes.
the guy from Kansas City, the big guy. What's his name?
Rod? Is it Rod
Rod
Gray?
Gray, yeah, and
Yeah,
the most
yeah,
successful cook on Barbecue Pitmasters, who wasn't
yeah.
invited back to the All Stars, which I'd love to know that backstory someday. But that 2-hour episode that was really in the barbecue community, that was really like, wow, are you going to watch that? Can you believe that 2 hours? And it lived up to its billing. That's what I'm trying to
Yeah.
say. And I have no doubt that tomorrow night is going to
It's
live
gonna
up to
be
its
a
billing too.
doozy.
Well, listen, good luck. I know it's already been filmed, and I know you know
Yeah.
the results, but good luck to you. And I'm hoping that the karma from the Owl's Nest Barbecue Show is so strong that it reached
I
back to you
feel
in
it.
February and carried you through until Thursday night. Okay. And if you're and
Steve, I want to thank you so much for having me on the show. It was a complete delight, and I hope everyone tunes in because it really was, such a pleasure working with Susie, and the fact that there were 2 women, at the end is pretty cool.
Oh, absolutely. I think it's great, and they could. I don't think they could have handpicked two better personalities and 2 better cooks because
Thank you.
number one, you can have all the personality in the world, but if you can't cook, you're not going to be on it. So
Yeah,
congratulations, Leanne. And if you get
thank
if
you.
you're the winner, we'll hook up in a couple of weeks and we'll talk about that too. Okay.
Sure.
Thanks, Leanne. We
Whatever.
appreciate it very much. Lee Ann Whippen coming to you live from Tampa, Florida. Everybody, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Please share this with your friends. Hey, if you see it, go to Instagram, Owl's Nest Barbecue. Give me a click. Follow us on Instagram. We post a lot of good barbecue pictures. We post a lot of good kitchen pictures, crazy pictures, and we just have a lot of fun with it. And we'd appreciate the like. And if you're watching on the Owl's Nest Barbecue page, hit a follow, and we appreciate that very much. And until next Wednesday, we have got a great guest. We've got the guys that own the Atlanta barbecue store will be here next Wednesday. And the following Wednesday after that, we've got Michael McDermott. So we've got a lot going on. Thanks, everybody, for watching. And thanks, everybody, for listening. Good luck, Susie Bullock. Good luck, Lee Ann Whippen. And we'll see you next Wednesday.